in the hospital, we don't have like x-ray machines or CT scans. Doctor just literally rubbed my belly and said, you might have appendicitis. And they just opened me up that day without any painkiller. And then they opened it up and realized it wasn't appendicitis. I just had a malnutrition and infection. But they got it better, so they still removed my appendix. Perfectly fine, my organ got removed.
This sounds like literal torture. She's been literally tortured.
Map of the world. By the time when I was 13 years old, it was 2007. I'm sure a lot of you were born by then. 2007, right? I was 13 and I could not find any more food to survive. So we all know that North Korea is a socialist system, and supposedly the state has to provide food for the people, because that's what socialism is, right? And North Korea began with the idea the government would take care of everything for us, as long as people gave up their private property, their freedom, and their freedom of movement and religion. When North Koreans gave up all their rights in the hope of creating a paradise, the government, the North Korean regime, divided people into 51 different classes. And that your class determined who gets fed and who starved to die. It's like Hunger Games.
So if you guys don't know what's going on, this is a North Korean defector named Yomi Park, who is talking about what it was like growing up in an ultra-socialist economy such as North Korea. In this specific video, she's basically saying that North Korea... Check. Oh, you hear me now. If you guys don't know what's going on, this is Yomi Park, a North Korean defector, talking about what it was like growing up in North Korea. If you guys aren't aware, North Korea, in her vision, is an ultra-socialist environment where the citizens of North Korea gave up their freedoms in order to live under a socialist ruling where the government provides everything you have. Right now, she's talking to a class of young American students who have given into the beliefs of socialism, and it's basically along the tracks of you guys are giving into beliefs that were very popular in North Korea at a time where you put all your faith in, I guess, the government, and then the government turns their back on you. That's what she's saying. And she's trying to persuade the students to not give up on keeping their own things. And when you're giving to socialism, like she's saying, you're giving up your natural born freedoms. Let's see how she elaborates on this. I'm also a college student, so I'm very interested in this. Let's continue.
Again, so many books copied North Korea. I don't know where to begin. So, as I said, like North Korea is a homogeneous nation, all same Korean people. How on earth would you create a 51 different caste system out of the same homogeneous nation? They did something that reminds me of what's happening in America. They divide people based on who your ancestors were. So if your ancestor was a landowner, they literally said your blood is tainted, your genetics is oppressive, so you are going to lower ranking. And if your great-grandfather was a communist, they put you in a top class. But then who here choose your ancestors? Nobody. Do we choose our parents? None of us do. I think to me, that's why it broke my heart when I came to America, where some of the young kids born in America have to be answering to slavery that happened that had nothing to do with them. I have a son who's half white, half Asian, so screwed. He's in this like the pyramid of like the victimhood. He's on top of it. And somehow he's supposed to feel guilty about what happened in the past. Like, how on earth did he choose the slavery? Nothing to do with him. The guilt by association is a very foundation of Marxism. You get punished for something not you did as an individual, but being associated to that person. And that's how North Korea came up with the 51 different classes. And this class determines who gets fed. Like Kim Jong-un, who was on top of the class, he goes to Switzerland and get educated. And his problem is having too much food. His literally problem is eating too much and being so fat, he might die soon, right? And the people on the bottom, what's their problem? They don't have food. Why? Not because North Korea is poor, because governments won't starve you on purpose. So, for instance, North Korea conducts more than 300 missile tests over the last 5 years. Each missile test, when they conduct it, they can feed the entire nation for entire year. No North Korean ever have to die in North Korea if they just do one less missile test per year. But they starve us because if we are constantly starving, we don't have time to think about how many genders are there, right? We don't have time to think about the meaning of life. And in some sense, when I came to America, I realized also not having problem can be a problem because you're creating problems out of thin air. But North Korea, your constant survivor and thought occupies your mind is finding next meal.
There's a statistic going around that says blue states are richer than red states, and blue states have more degrees than red states, and this is why blue states tend to be more liberal. And months ago, I took a different perspective on this, and I'm going to relate it back to what she's saying. When you don't have any problems, you tend to create problems. And since red states tend to be poor, since they don't have money, red states traditionally focus on much more serious issues. And that's just a perspective. If I'm wrong, let me know. Meaning that they focus on the economy, they focus on their meals, they focus on things like that. And blue states, like she's saying or referencing, focus on much more, I like to call them first world problems. And that's kind of where we're getting at now. People who struggle, people who really live life and they have to fight and give for everything that they have, that nothing is handed to them, they understand the bitterness, the resentment of what it's not like to have enough money to feed your family or not enough money to feed yourself. Your lights are about to get cut off. They understand the struggle of having a kid or a sibling who works super hard but nothing is given to them. They understand that. And that's kind of where it really upset me in the past, where I've noticed people in affluent environments, a lot of the issues that they focused on were just first world issues. When you have people who are starving, you have people who are homeless and hungry, what gives you the audacity to focus on anything else? What gives you the audacity? And that's kind of where she's getting at now. Also, she touched on the fact that heavily socialist environments, in order to believe in a heavily socialist environment, you have to naturally believe that your government, I guess, would do what's in the best interest for you. That's the belief, the fundamental belief. And she's saying that in North Korea, that backfired. And that led to a poor class and a higher class. And when you're already struggling, it's hard to focus on believing that the government will do what's best for you if they haven't done what's best for you. But a lot of, I guess, liberal towns or rich people automatically believe that because they've never had that struggle. And I think that's a very profound point that she's making. But let's continue.
So I grew up, the fanciest meal I ate was whenever I found grasshoppers. In the season of harvest, there are a lot of grasshoppers. And don't worry, it's really good for your body. Look at me. And I was eating dragonflies, a lot of plants. And now I live in New York City. So many of my friends are vegans and telling me how we need to eat insects to save planets. Like, I did my portion. You guys do your part now, right? But by the time in March, in 2007, March is known for in the West is like I was surprised by the time of cherry blossom or the revival, but in North Korea, March is known as a season of death. Because think about it, you saved a lot of things in the fall, so you might had enough dried like plants survive in the winter time. Spring is not yet enough plants or bugs coming out. So most of the countries, when they go experience starvation, March is a time when most of people die. And that is the time when I couldn't find any more food. Luckily, as I said, I was living in the border town. And at nighttime, I saw lights came from China across the river. And I thought, if I went where the lights were, I could find a bowl of rice. Without this simple just idea, that led my sister at the time was 16 years old escape North Korea first before me. I wanted to go with her, but I couldn't because I had a horrible stomach sickness. So my mother took me to the hospital. And you would imagine this is a socialist healthcare system where everything is free, right? In the hospital, we don't have like X-ray machines or CT scans. Doctor just literally rubbed my belly and said, "You might have appendicitis," and they just opened me up that day without any painkiller. And then they opened it up and realized it wasn't appendicitis. I just had a malnutrition and infection. But they got embarrassed, so they still removed my appendix. Perfectly fine, my organ got removed.
This sounds like literal torture. She's been literally tortured. And honestly, this sounds like a real reality of her situation. This sounds like a real reality of what can happen in an ultra socialist environment. And let's just focus on healthcare specifically. Places like neurosurgeons, cardiac, what do they call it? Cardiovascular surgeons, stuff like that. Anesthesiologists, they get paid a pretty penny when it comes to money. If let's say healthcare turns socialist, their salaries would automatically drop. That removes a lot of the incentive to go to school for 10 years and take out $300,000 worth of loans. Let's say loans disappear. That takes out the incentive to go to school for 10 years and dedicate 15-hour residency days studying. That will automatically lower the quality of healthcare that you can get ultimately in society, and people just ignore that because, like I said earlier, people who take on super socialist ideals already have a good quality of life, an amazing quality of life. So in their mind, they genuinely believe that everyone gets the same quality of life that they get. They believe that everyone makes a lot of money. Everyone has good doctors. Everyone has a grocery store in their neighborhood, a real grocery store with real fruits and real vegetables. They believe that everyone goes to good schools. When you have these beliefs, why wouldn't you support socialism? Why wouldn't you support everyone having this? But in reality, that's not the case. And I'm not saying socialism is 100% bad, but a lot of young people take on these beliefs because they've never had to really live their own life yet. But let's continue.
Appendicitis, I just had a malnutrition and infection, but they got embarrassed, so they still removed my appendix. Perfectly fine, my organ got removed. So don't worry, when I go back, I'm going to sue these doctors. It's the one thing I thought I learned from America. But after this operation done, it was my last few days of North Korea. I still remember like yesterday. Of course, in the surgery room, like most of people die from like infection because we don't even have penicillin. But then I had to go outside to go to bathroom. On my way to go outside to the bathroom, I saw a lot of like piles of dead bodies. But looking at dead bodies in North Korea is like looking at trees. It's so common. Nothing about it is like shocking. But then, what shocked me was the eyes were all hollow. These people. So I asked my mom, like, why do they have no eyes? Because they're all frozen. And this nurse said, the softest human tissue in our body is our eyes. So when we die, rats eat our eyes first. And that's when I thought I had to get out no matter what. Right after I got released from hospital, I found a note that my sister left me. And this lady, supposedly, according to my sister, was going to help me to go to China. At the time, I did not question why this random lady was going to help me to go to China, because crossing North Korean border to China is not like crossing southern border in America, guys. It's not like you can be watching TikTok and just walk in. It's like border guards with machine guns, and they shoot you if they see you crossing the border. So the lady was bribing these border guards and helped us cross this Yellow River. As soon as I crossed the Yellow River into China, I learned why this lady was helping us, because she sold us as sex slaves to Chinese people. China also lived under the Communist Party, had this policy called the one-child policy. Government literally determined how many kids each family can have. So they decide only per family one child. And this policy caused so many Chinese people abort girls. And then now there are 35 surplus men cannot find wives. The Chinese Communist Party don't want this young angry men start revolution. So what are they gonna do? They're going to appease them with the North Korean girls by letting them to sell us as sex slaves. So
And this is sad, and I don't think anything like this will ever happen in America. I don't think this. But to see the fact that she's from North Korea and she's telling a group of young Americans about their socialist system, it's kind of frightening because although I do not believe anything like this will happen in America, if you, I guess, prescribe to a super ultra socialist ideal, you are kind of giving up your natural born power to own things. And that, in my opinion, isn't the best approach. But I'm not an economist. I'm not a financial advisor. Let me know what you all think about this. This is a crazy story. My name is Elifar Jojo, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.